All right. So tonight we have a classic. We've waited a month for this one. We're in Hilchas Yesodei Hatorah 5:5. We've been discussing Yaharag Vel Yavor, and now we come to the top, one of the top ethical dilemmas um, that I'm aware of. That the uh, the Gemara doesn't talk about it, but this comes from a Yerushalmi in Maseches Trumos. Um, if you wanted to know, so the Rambam says, "Nashim sha'amru lahem obdei kochavim tnu lanu achas miken." So here's a situation: you have a group of women that they get taken by a non-Jewish person, and they make a demand, and they say, "You have to give us one unatama oso." You amongst you decide to give me one to be with, or the alternative is v'imlab natames kulchem, right? I'll rape all of you. Okay, so that's the situation. So the Rambam says, "Yitamu kulan v'al yimtzru lehem nefesh achas mi Yisrael." They are not allowed to give one over. Okay, meaning one of them cannot decide, "I'll go and take one for the team." Okay, and save everyone. Okay, rather they all have to be forcibly taken. Okay, one person, one woman basically cannot bail out the whole crew. Okay, so let's just continue on. Or in a different case, if a non-Jew told a bunch of Jewish people that give us one, okay, and we'll kill him. You have to pick lots, right, amongst yourself, and the shortest straw comes to me, and I'm going to kill him. And if you can't decide, right, or not only if you can't decide, if one of them volunteers, okay, so that's not permitted. He says, "I'll kill all of you." Yahargu kulam v'al yimsru lehem nefesh achas mi Yisrael. Okay, you're not allowed to give yourself up to save other people. Okay, so that's the second statement. V'im yichaduhu lahem. How about the group is captured, and the lead bandit says basically, "I want Ruvain," and he points to someone, and he says, "I want him." V'amru tulanu as ploni. I want this specific person. Give him over. O naharog es kulchem, or we're going to kill you. Okay, so they have to decide, well, listen, this guy wants a specific person anyways. So they're like, well, maybe let's hand them over. So it depends. Im of misa, if this person that the bandit picked was someone who was already chayav misa, he was he was a walking dead man. Okay, Kisheva ben Bichri. If he was like Sheva ben Bichri, if you remember the case in Shmuel Beis, where it's a very long story, but in short, Sheva ben Bichri is Mored Malchus against David HaMelech. He runs away to a city, and Yoav is running after him. And basically, one of the women in the city says, "I'll give you over this guy Sheva ben Bichri, who's Mored Malchus, but please don't destroy the whole city." Okay, so this case in the Navi actually makes it to the Yerushalmi and Trumos, where this is the whole debate. Okay, and this is where the Rambam gets it from. So, are you allowed to give someone up? In this case, was this woman who turned in Sheva ben Bichri right or not? Okay, on the one hand, she saved the city from Yoav's army, but on the other hand, she was what we call a moser, or a moseret in this case. But on the other hand, Sheva ben Bichri was a rodef. So we have many, many intersecting sugyas, and that's why this one halacha is more apropos for a 1 hour Tuesday night shiur, although even 1 hour wouldn't do this Rambam justice. But as you could see, there are many, 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 as I said yesterday, a lot of ink spilled on this one halacha. Okay, but that's basically what the Rambam is saying. So in the case of Sheva ben Bichri, she was justified because Sheva was Chayiv Misa. Okay, so that's why the Rambam says Yitnu Oso Lahem. Okay, but the Ein Morin Lahem Ken Lechatchila, but this shouldn't Lechatchila be you shouldn't do this lechatchila. V'im eno chayav misa yahargu kulan. What if it's not sheva? What if they say we know someone is hiding out, and the Yerushalmi brings another case of a story where someone is hiding out in the city, and the king comes and says, if you don't give us this person, right, if you don't master him out, we're going to destroy everyone. If this person really wasn't chayav misa, then unfortunately everybody has to give themselves up, and they are not allowed to give up this person. We cannot give one, right, the sanctity of life. Right, this has even today, and unfortunately, this comes up in the army. There in Israel, there are all kinds of many halachic ramifications. I would do an injustice by not saying over for all those Noda B'Yehuda fans out there. This is, I would say, probably top 5 Noda B'Yehuda tshuvas, where he deals with a woman who in Yoredeah, I looked it up. It is Yoredeah 210, Reish Yud. He deals with a case of a woman who is traveling with a group, and they're captured by a soldier, and the captors threaten to kill everyone unless they handed over the woman to do Gilo Arayos with. So what happened was, before they could decide, one woman voluntarily gave herself up, and she saved the whole squad. So the question posed to the Noda B'Yehuda was, and this is such a amazing range of answers. Usually you get like Aser, Mutter, Chayev, Potter, Zakai, right? Usually there's only 2 options, either yay or nay. So here the question was, A, is it forbidden? Okay. B, is it permitted? Or C, was it heroic? Right? We have literally the range going from absolutely forbidden to not only is it permitted, right? Everyone should be like this. So, and part B of this question is, were the others who were with that group, right? Were they allowed? Should they allowed her to give herself up? So this is a very, very lengthy. I saw it once a long time ago. It's like an 8-page tshuva. It's like, really, if you're a Noda B'Yehuda fan, this is like, this takes the cake. But basically, so he brings this. Obviously, he brings the Rambam, and he brings the Yerushalmi in Trumos. Why it's in Trumos? Again, not topic for not now. But what does it have to do with Truma? It actually does have to do with Truma. But basically, the way, he quotes the Rambam, and he says, well, look at what the Rambam says, and if someone is Chayiv Misa, like Sheva ben Bichri. But basically, to make a long story short, the Noda B'Yehuda says, he says, unfortunately, the woman shouldn't have done what she did, okay? Because it's Gilu Arayos. And the question further was, is she now permitted to go back to her husband, right? So basically, the woman herself shouldn't have done it. It's considered Gilu Arayos even to save others. So the answer to the question is, what she did was forbidden. For the other people, okay, they were not allowed to hand her over. She couldn't hand over herself, okay? And other people weren't allowed to hand her over, even though she wanted to volunteer, okay? So the question that everybody's wondering is, are you crazy? Here she is. She did something. Now everybody's probably thinking in the back of their head, Esther Hamalka, right? This is the Purim story. She gave herself over to a non-Jew, to save the Jewish people. Again, whatever, we could talk about it for an hour, but I'm trying to do it in 10 minutes. But basically, so the Lord Yehuda concludes that even though she had the most noblest of intentions and she was sacrificing herself, but the halacha technically is that what she did was wrong. And it's not considered, ironically, Kiddush Hashem, because it involved Gilu Arayos, the big three, right? We always talk about the big three. This, unfortunately, is an exception, and he doesn't call her a chota per se, but this is a real head scratcher. How we deal with a situation. So this is this is one for the books. So that's number 5. I'll just do a quick one, although again, the next one is also an hour sheer, but I'll try to do it in 2 minutes. The same is true when it comes to medication, okay? Regarding if I'm forced to do something, what if I'm forced to take medication that isn't kosher? So that sounds like a no-brainer, right? Again, we violate Shabbos for someone who's sick, right? We break all the rules when it comes to someone who's in a sakana. So Kate said, Misha lamus, someone who is about to die, right? He has to take a certain, right, medicine that has gelatin in it. Okay? Misun shebetorah osin, right? If it's an esser from the Torah, like treifa, for example, you do it. Umisrapen b'kol isurin shebetorah b'makom sakana. There's no question that you heal yourself, except for chutz me'avodas kochavim gil arayos u'shvichas damim. Let's say the remedy was to take the bark of an ashera tree, okay, and boil it with water and whatever and drink it. Right? If you remember, the Gemara in Avodah Zarah talks about this at length. Right? We had that a few months ago in Daf Yomi. So that's one of the exceptions. You cannot heal yourself for Avodah Zarah, for Gilu Arayos. What does that mean? Right? This should ring a bell. The last Daf in Ben So Rumor, if you remember, we had a whole hour shir on that funny story, not funny story, on that tragic story with a person who had to be with a woman or else he was going to die. Right? Remember that? Like Ayin Dalit, I think, something like that. Anyways, so getting back to the Rambam or Shvichas Damim. What if the way to save yourself is by killing someone else? All right? Russian roulette. I don't know. Whatever you could conjure. Shafil b'makom sakana ein misrapin bahem. You cannot save your own life if it involves violating any one of the big three. V'im avar v'nisrape. What if you couldn't hold yourself back and you said, I have to commit this cardinal sin in order to live? So, onshinaso bezdin onesh haroyulo. The court is allowed to punish him. So if you remember yesterday, the Rambam says something a little bit different. He said that if you violate one of the big three to save your life, although it's not good, Bezdin can't give you malchus. Remember that? We had that yesterday. So today he changes his tune a little bit, and he says when it comes to refuah, saving your own life through refuah, if it's done through one of the big three, you still get some kind of punishment in the court system. All right, as there's whatever, we got to stop here, but there's lots to say about this. Have a good evening.
Thank you. I have one question.
Only one?
Well, yeah.